All right. So welcome, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for AFM's weekly virtual training. Africa Fire Mission is here to support firefighters across Africa, and it's good to see some of our partners, both from Kenya and also I see Malawi in the training today. So we're very glad to have you all here. And we really encourage you to continue to invite others to join this training. Our hope is to continue to grow and to continue this training into 2022. And we really want to see this training continue to grow each week. So I know it can start to feel we're getting close to the end of the year here. It could start to feel like, oh, we've been doing this for a while. But I want to encourage you to continue to learn, to continue to grow. If you miss a weekly session, to join in later. We have some exciting announcements that'll be coming soon for 2022. And so just want to continue to encourage your participation. For those of you in Kenya, we are still planning the symposium. The local secretariat is responsible for our venue and for some other details. So if you have questions about that, we encourage you to contact CFOA for the details that are coming. But the symposium will be taking place from November 15th through 20th. The 20th should be the competition that we've had the last few years. So apologize for the delay on that. The local symposium secretariat is working hard to get that planning in order. But we have about 20 team members that are coming from the US for the training this year. So we're very excited about that. And that's in Kenya. We've also got teams going to Malawi and Zambia in 2022. So we're looking forward to partnering there as well. And for our partners there, more details on that will be coming soon. So with that, want to encourage your interaction, ask questions in the chat, introduce yourself in the chat, and let's just stay interactive. Our instructor today is Teddy, and we'll let him introduce himself. But first, I'm going to pass the baton to Jose for some words of encouragement today.
Thank you, Nancy, for giving me this good time. And also thank everyone for finding time to come. And my encouragement today is in relation to self-development. And with self-development, it's just like when you feed your body. You feed your body when you're hungry, right? And you drink water when you're hungry, right? So that's the same thing with feeding your mind, your brain. It doesn't mean that if you want knowledge, you just go and ignore yourself. You have to go and seek it. Yeah, just like the Bible says, seek and you will find. So what you're doing even now by you spending your data and your bundles to come and listen to designate 1 hour of your time, this is actually self-development. It is a knowledge that you put on your mind, and it can go to your passive brain, whereby when you need something, it will go and grab, and you will remember, hey, this lesson, I remembered it when we had the one hour session. So I would encourage us to continue doing self-development, not only in the fire service, but anywhere else. Yeah. For example, if your pastime is repairing your car at home and you're doing it slowly by slowly, go on YouTube and seek knowledge on that, on how to repair your car, you know. But if you look at it only without doing anything, you'll not get that encouragement to actually get to repair that car. And it's the same thing in these lessons. It gives you that oomph to actually, for you to continue serving God's people, and for you to have an extra edge in the fire service. So without further ado, I would welcome Teddy Malachi to actually take us through today's lesson, and he'll tell us what what is in store for us. Karibu sana sir, all the way from Kisumu County. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Brother Jose. Thank you so much. Nancy, thank you. To the participants, my name is Malachi, the Director of Fires, Kenya. We are based in West Kenya region, promoting the welfare of firefighters and also enhancing emergency medical services. I'm also in the committee of the Kenya Council of Emergency Medical Technicians, and fire and EMT go hand in hand. That's why we always have to put their welfare together. For today, we'll be talking about firefighting in rural areas or preventive aspect. It is a very simple slide with simple words that all of us can understand, with pictures that we can relate to. The whole aspect is to really think on how we can move forward into strengthening fire prevention, fire safety, and firefighting in the rural areas, which has not been given the necessary significance in our country. So, what can you see in the picture? Ole Masenge, what can you see in the picture?
There is a glass thatched house that is on smoke.
What else?
Household effects are, sorry.
Household effects?
Yeah, there are household effects outside the house. Yeah.
That's true. So that actually tells you that the occupants cannot go back there. And if you look at it, the house cannot be habitable anymore. What do you think they would have done to prevent such a situation? Or what do you think they would have done to mitigate such a situation? This is what we are going to look into. Next slide, please. Okay. What can you see? Another participant, what can you see in the picture? The first picture on the left hand up.
Hello.
Yes, Cyrus.
What I can see there, I see our local chicos, of which we normally call the mecos. I see the house also on the second picture, a house on fire. And the third picture I see also, I don't know whether it was a church or maybe a certain residence or a certain public office. I see on fire also.
Yes.
And on the other side, I see the villagers or the residents.
Yes.
Sit down. I think they were being trained on how to handle this kind of fires.
Okay.
That's what I can observe from the pictures. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, from the setup that you can see and the women here, what would you say would be the impact of fire tragedies on women in rural areas? The floor is open. Lynette, salam. Any person who can try that? What is the impact of fire tragedies on women in rural areas?
Please, instructor, can you ask that question slowly?
I'm asking, what is the impact of fire tragedies on women in rural areas?
I can try to explain that.
Yes.
I think the impact to our women is just the fire may cause the losing of properties, the houses, no place to live after the occurrence of the fire.
Psychologically, what can you say?
There's a comment in the chat from
Yeah.
Lynette. Psychological torture is also an impact.
Which is true. And that is why, whenever there are fire tragedies, our women, our mothers, our grandmothers, they cry so much holding their hands, and you cannot actually calm them down because of the pain that they're feeling inside that no one else is seeing. So as we move on, we need to realize that the impact of fire tragedies on our women is real. They never talk about it, but it lives to haunt them, and it pains them and leaves a scar in them. The reason being, they are the people who actually use fire a lot in their homes. They do the daily work, and we know because we've come from the rural areas. But the question is, why has this never been given a significance within our country to support the rural folk in fire prevention? Can we take it as a mission? Can we bring our mothers on board? Can we educate them? That is an answer for another day. Next slide. As we move on, what are the precipitating factors to rural fires? One of the things that we realize in our region is that there's general perception that fires in the countryside are less serious. And as such, they're less likely to lead to collaboration, which is the spread of fire rapidly from one building to another. So when you talk about fire in the rural areas, people don't think about it twice. Why? Because the feeling is that it will be localized and it will not be spread, unless otherwise it's in a school where children are many. But the psychological impact to those who've been affected never heals. Now, there are certain parts in the country which have felt that it is uneconomical to protect. You really ask yourself, we were talking recently about Samburu and there's the other side of Turkana. Because of their way of life, there's a feeling that aspect of fire. Gideon, mute. Gideon, can you mute? Now, if you look at the other precipitating factors we have are inadequate piped water services, enabling infrastructure, roads, water reservoir, firehouses, and fighting equipment. This is something we can actually align to. And then there are lack of enabling policies, planning, and strategic direction. We have counties that are big, and in counties there are sub-counties. And in the sub-counties, most of in our country, they do not have firefighting engines. Then there's a lack of training capacity, which is designated community firefighters and firefighting volunteers. Right now, we have a government that is supporting the National Industrial Training Authority that is building the capacity of youths. But you realize that it is not taking into consideration emergency rescue services, more so firefighting, which is actually one of the areas our country is performing poorly in. But it is supporting youths and giving out grants yearly at the rural area, at the county level. Why is this so? Because we are having lack of enabling processes and then lack of capacity. If you look at the institutions that train on fire, they are basically either in Mombasa or Nairobi or Kiambu or Thika. In other places or other counties, they're not there. So this thing needs to actually cascade it. So the precipitating factors are many, but these are the core in the bigger picture that as firefighting personnel, we need to be pushing to have an advocacy on. Next slide. What are the causes of fire in rural areas? Jose, can you read?
We have lightning.
Good.
We have arson.
Yes.
Electrical fault.
Yes.
Charcoal burning.
Yes.
Farm clearing.
Yes.
Hunting activities.
Good. If you look at the picture, you will see that there's a man who is engaging in charcoal burning activity. It is destructive to the environment, and once they burn and clear that area, they go to another place. We've had situation of fire being begun by such-like activities. But the one that we are looking for that was of recent was the one that happened in Laikipia, the one you're seeing in the picture below, arson due to banditry. So when you look into that situation, it will be very hard if you really want to align this community on fire prevention measures, because they've been actually trying to make it safe. But all of a sudden, arsonists, bandits come to that. How do you deal with it? It is a cross mix of fire and security issues. So that cross mix makes us go back to the drawing board and say, how can we be able to involve our security agencies on fire prevention services? Because this person will not go back to their home unless otherwise security is actually confirmed in place. He'll not put up again in that place. What are the other causes of fire in your rural areas? Peter Muturi Gitao, rest of causes of fire in your region?
I think one cause is unattended cooking.
Unattended cooking, thank you. I've
Yeah.
noted that. Laftan Malim.
Hello.
Yes.
Bomb blast.
Can you explain further bomb blasts in your rural area?
Bomb blast in case of maybe terrorist something like that.
What is your region?
Garissa.
Oh, Garissa. Now we take it in percent. Now, causes of fire will vary from one region to the other. Like Marlin Lupton has given us, and Peter has also given us. So we really need to look into and try to do an assessment from one region to the other, so that when you are developing preventive measures, then the preventive measures that resonate with the community that you are serving. So let us actually have it as fire ambassadors, fire safety ambassadors, that if you want to talk about fire safety in the rural area, fire prevention, do an assessment and let your prevention be in line with the causes and the precipitating factors within your region. That way, your community will be able to benefit. Next slide. On risk analysis, we were looking into what are the level of risk and what in line with the precipitating factors. We realized that most of the houses or structures that are constructed in the rural areas normally have got low resistance, and low resistance means high risk. Materials that are used for construction vary from timber, wood, iron sheet. Others have even plastic. Then on top, they have grass thatch, iron sheet also. So looking into this, the type of structures that they have pose a high risk when it comes to fire hazard. When it comes to self-saving ability, because of lack of training in terms of how to save themselves, they tend to lose their lives with the perception that their rescue goes towards property other than life-saving. Why? They've worked so hard to gather or to have this little property. And when fire breaks out, they do all that they can, their level best, to try and save what they can. In that essence, that means the aspect that the air around the burning building or burning area is heated. And because of the effort is building in, the person tends to breathe in through the mouth. And that affects his airway. In the long run, he's not able to be toxic inhalation of toxic smoke. He becomes generally weak and somehow becomes unconscious. So in the rural area, significance is put onto saving property other than life saving, which makes their risk high in terms of losing their lives. We have fire control mechanisms, which is very low, and their ability. This comes into the aspect of setting up the necessary infrastructure and line of authorities that they need to call. So we say, when somebody wants to ask, where do I get the necessary fire safety knowledge? There are only fire stations in the urban settings, but most of the folk live in the rural area. So what is the fire control mechanism in the rural area in terms of the hazards that they have? It is low. The ability to deal with them, low, because they've not been trained. Then when you come to most of our counties, the fire brigade in rural areas exist in name, with total lack of hydrants, fire lines, increasing level. We have papers, policy papers that have been made for the last 10 years across the countries, but actualizing those policies, they do not see the light of the day. Very good plans. Our leaders go for benchmarking in Germany, in America, in UK, but when they come back, they do not actualize these things. So in terms of building this infrastructure, it is very low, and most of our counties and countries lack the necessary grassroots infrastructure, thereby increasing their risk. Rural areas have got large number of fire hazards with low control measures. And this is evident whenever fire breaks out in the forest, in the sugar plantations, in schools in the rural areas. All these tend to burn down to the ground, in homes. Low control measures. What is our role and responsibility as fire ambassadors? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Next slide. Sepepi Ntiati. What can you see in the picture? Sepepi? Susan Mundia, what can you see in the picture? Celestine, what can you see in the picture? Oh, so Lynette Salamba said, looks like a learning institution dormitory burned down. Now, if you look at the picture critically, you can see that there is a foundation in terms of walling down that has not yet burnt. But there's the upper part made of timber and iron sheets that got burnt. What does it tell you? If you compare it with the existing building beside it, in terms of risk, what does it tell you in this rural setup? Tony Minor?
Yes. Shows that if it wasn't controlled well, it will have spread to the other building.
Good. In terms of the structure itself, in terms of its risk and vulnerability, what does it tell you compared to the one that is existing?
The existing one looks kind of, we can say it's strong, because from my point of view, it looks like a concrete wall. So vulnerability is not that, you can say it won't be raised to the ground, the whole of it, and like this one made of timber.
Good. That is a good assessment. Most of the structures in our rural areas are made of this because this is the cheapest and the easiest materials to get. So the permanent structure is made down to control water, animals, but the upper structure to save on cost is made of iron sheet and timber. Looking into that, it looks like an institution, like someone had suggested. And of course, it has been raised to the ground. Timeline, this will actually burn in less than 1 hour. If you look at it, if at all there was any accelerant to that respect. But they can do better if at all they have the capacity and the knowledge on fire risk analysis, on prevention and control measures. We ask again, what is our role as fire ambassadors in our rural areas? Next slide. We looked around our region and checked on the preparedness and prevention measures in the rural areas. I'll let Trust Mazimba, can you read? Samuel Charo? Ose read, those guys are out of the picture.
So fire preparedness and prevention measures in rural areas. Separating cooking hut from main house. Number 2, separating houses location in homes. Number 3, clearing grass in front of houses. Number 4, having a clearance around the house free from trees, grass, and bushes or tall plants. Number 5, having a back door that is directly opposite to the front for escape. Number 5, burning waste in controlled manner.
Next slide, please. Continue, Jose.
Having big water tanks in front of the house for water harvesting. Having call-out signs in case of emergency to mobilize villagers. Having big windows for means of escape. Putting out fires before going to sleep. cooking outside the house in open flame, use of mud as construction material for walling.
Thank you, Jose. You realize that the preventive and preparedness measures that have been put across are things that we can relate to in our rural areas. This feedback came out of an assessment that we conducted at the state of Moroni, a fire-prone area due to the sugar plantation. And the community told us that as much as they're building houses, they've been having community wars, and community wars based on due to land conflict. And these are some of the things that have always kept them safe. For example, having an escape door at the back. That escape door is only locked from the inside, not locked from the outside. So the front door is locked from the outside, but the escape door at the back is locked from the inside. That gives them room to escape in case the house has been set on fire. When we go to our urban areas, we have water tanks, which are big, but the water tanks have got taps. Now, it takes time for that tap to fill in a bucket. But in the rural areas, they have tanks that the top has been cut off, and you can actually dip in a bucket inside the water tank to take in water in case of an emergency. So the strategies that they use to survive and prevent fire are things that they are able to do locally. What they actually need is an enhancement or promotion of fire prevention services in an upscale manner, so that they're able to relate this. To them, prevention is better than firefighting, because by the time they mobilize to firefight, a lot of damage would have been done. So in the rural areas, they really feel that prevention, if it is actually intertwined with their daily activities, is much better than a standalone activity. And that's why they've decided to integrate it in their building, in their daily activities, in their homes as it moves on. So if you can mention others that you may know of, you have 2 minutes. Kevin Mageto.
Yes, Kevin Mageto.
Yes, any fire preparedness and prevention measures in your rural area that you've not mentioned?
Okay. As by my area, I think you have mentioned all preventive measures.
Yeah.
And
Good. Next slide.
I read the next slide.
Yes, read the next slide. Common firefighting measures in rural areas.
Okay. Having big water tanks in front of your house for water harvesting. The second point is having call out sign in case of emergency to mobilize.
Kevin, we are on the next slide. Common firefighting measures in rural areas.
Okay, sorry, let me.
Yes.
Common
firefighting measures in rural areas.
The first point is the use of water tank, water bucket, stroke basin. The second one is the use of soil. Third point, use of twigs. Fourth, removal of burning materials. And the last point is saying creating fire breaks.
Good. If you can, is there any that is on firefighting measures in your community that you'd like to add?
Okay, maybe by, let's say, by mobilizing by mobilizing my people from my area, maybe we can educate them by having educated them to put out fire without using, maybe, let's say, before the firefighters arrive, by using, let's say, the resourceable nearby. And anything that is of help, which can be used to put on off fire.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next slide.
isn't very important.
Good. If you can see in that picture, Orutwa Kane, ICT manager, is yellow fire. Orutwa, what can you see?
A burning bush.
Good.
A person with a bucket.
Good.
And some people using some twigs to put out fire in a bush.
Good. Okay, that is actually a burning sugar plantation. The left below. It's a burning sugar plantation. And what we always do this side is that we create fire breaks. Many times we have arsonists who are doing that, creating fire. And it's very hard actually to put it out using the fire water buzzers or the fire or foam tenders. Now we have the picture, the one below on the right. Many times when the fire departments take all the distance to the rural areas, they reach when the fire has already done total damage. And when they reach, the community is always hostile because they do not understand. But there are a lot of factors that the fire team always consider and that are not with them. First, the condition of the road, the time it took for them to reach the fire, contact them. And whenever they've contacted, they do not stay online. It is always a problem getting to know the exact place in the rural area that is burning. By the time the fire team reach, damage has already been done. So it is a challenge putting out fires in the rural area, more so if you want to move around and elements are against you, time is against you, and the community do not have the direct contact to you. So which raises the question, as fire ambassadors, what can we do to promote fire prevention and fire safety services in our rural areas? Next slide. Control and management measures. One, we need to strengthen the fire control policies in rural areas and promote fire safety awareness of villages. So one of the participants actually talked about this. We need to have or establish flexible and effective management mechanism. What I'm basically saying is there's our friend from Garissa. The nature of effective management that will work in their area is different from the one that is going to work in our area. Why? Their hazard is more of security related due to grenades and bomb blasts that causes fire in rural areas to that respect. You just don't go in without the necessary safety and security measures. So we need to establish those flexible and effective management mechanisms. We need to increase investment, improve rural firefighting equipment and infrastructure construction. It is actually good to see counties coming up with fire stations, but the question begs is this only standalone fire station in the urban setup, or will we have the same setup in the rural areas also? There needs to be integrated resources, promotion of construction of various kinds of fire brigades. We have firefighting in the wildlands, the forest fires. That needs to be a special unit. There's the one for the oil spill within the Lake Region and Mombasa Port. That's another special unit. Then we have the ones in the urban setup to that respect. That's also another unit to that respect. So we need to have the various kinds of fire brigades coming in to that respect. Then the most important is to improve villagers' self-ability through a variety of channels. You've seen their preventive measures that they have on daily basis. How do you improve their self-ability, their reliance, their resilience? We also need to change attitudes and behavior of general public towards the use of fire and burning. Arsonists, we should not be having those. Then finally, we need to promote community level training and mobilization of community members towards improved fire control. Fire control begins at the community level. If they understand the do's and don'ts, if they understand that they need to work together, if they understand that they have the potential to raise community emergency response team, to raise community firefighters, to raise community fire volunteers, we will not have a hard job as ambassadors. Next slide. Orutua, read for me that one. Positive effects of fire control in rural areas.
Increased availability of grasses, thatch, and other building materials. Providing living conditions, peace and cohesion. Number, okay, I've skipped the second one.
Just begin from the first one.
Increased availability of grasses, thatch, and other building materials. Increased numbers of wildlife.
Good.
Improved living condition, peace and cohesion.
Good.
More forest products, e.g. fruits, nuts, as food supplements. Improved condition of vegetation. More fodder for livestock. Less diseases among livestock. Increased income from sales of grass, animals, and other products. Better infrastructural growth.
Good. Now, for most people, they think that the only positive effect of fire control is that there'll be no fire. And then you'll not lose your things. But there are small benefits that you need to sell to the community, so that we do not have cases of rural fires as we've had them in our countries on the rise. Remember the wildfire in Australia, where we had lots of wildlife that were affected. In our national park, Meru National Park, so many wildlife were affected. These have got a negative turn. When we have rural fires, we lose grass, we lose fruits. Condition of living goes down, like the fires we are having in Laikipia. We lose infrastructural growth. So when we are building the capacity of the community, it is important that we drive that there will be long-term positive effect if they enhance their fire prevention, if we work together to enhance fire prevention. It is not a job of firefighters only, because the community is for all of us. Are there any positive effects you'd like to add? Ose? Any positive effect?
I'll pass for that one.
Awesome. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, firefighters, paramedics, that brings us to the end of our presentation for today. I'd like to recognize our sponsors, the Maltese International, our partners, Kenya Council of Emergency Medical Technicians. This would not have happened without the involvement of African Fire Mission. Thank you, Jose and Mo, for all the support you've given us. Any question?
What about increasing basic fire training to the community? Does it help?
Increasing basic fire training to the communities.
Community basic fire safety.
Yes, that actually helps, and we call it on improving the capacity of the community. On the last slide somewhere, it was on community level training. Yes, so that one actually helps. The only thing that you need to do is to understand what are the risks, what are the hazards, what are the precipitating factors, because regions or community differ to what their hazards are. So bring it into relation to their hazards, and the preventive measures will be easy to come about. Any other question? Jose, I return the mic to you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yes, hello.
Yes, thank you.
Hello.
And Gideon, we'll hold your question for just one moment. Thank you, Teddy, for presenting today. We're greatly appreciative of that and your participation with us. We're going to have some time for questions, but I just want to really appreciate you, and for everyone that attended. I'll be posting in just a few moments the evaluation for today, as well as some other details of where you can locate the trainings in the future. So just thank you very much. And Jose, I'll turn it to you. And I know Gideon had a question or comment.